funding, like one of the agents, like Devin mentioned, there's always funding out there for your students. But my specialty is IO psychology. So I'll tell you a little bit about the program and the work that I do. And then I'll just open it up to questions, Devin, because I don't know exactly what you wanted to hear, what y'all's interest is. But I am an IO psychologist, so I went to undergrad at University of South Florida. That just happened to be one of the top 10 schools for IO psychology. I wanted to be a clinician, like probably most of y'all want to be when I was an undergrad in psychology. Raise your hand if you want to be a clinician in here, or some sort of counselor, MFT, social work, anything like that. Nobody's raising their hand. Okay, a couple people raising their hands. Got a couple hands. I think most of us, when we started our psychology degree, that's what we wanted to do. I was fortunate enough to be exposed to other branches because I kind of fell out of love with the clinical side and started to like the sort of IO side. Nancy, did you have a question, or do you want to be a clinician? Just making sure. Anyway, just interrupt me.
No question.
Question?
No question. I was just raising my hand for the clinician.
Anyway, so I work with some boards like that, but at Cal State Long Beach, I teach some classes for the IO program. I do, to go back, I forgot where I was. So I did undergrad at University of South Florida, was lucky enough to be in something called the McNair Scholars Program, and the McNair Scholars Program hooked me up with a mentor who did IO psychology work. So I really am a strong believer in any post-baccalaureate type of program to get you prepared to go into graduate school, whether it's Build or McNair, any sort of EOP service, amazing to get involved in, hook you up with a mentor, get involved in research. For me, it helped me find IO psychology, did a thesis on program evaluation with healthy families, looking at mothers getting caseworkers to help them. And I looked at the turnover of the caseworkers and how that impacted the mother's longevity in the program. Then I went to graduate school at Tulane, studied there for 6 years. A lot of times at a PhD program, you do your master's and PhD at the same place. I didn't even go to get my master's. I just picked it up from an office. But I finished with a PhD, and I did a dissertation on actually looking at support and the equal support that people get in school environments, and how if y'all aren't supported, the teachers are nervous. If the teachers aren't supported, of course, they're nervous about that too. So it's all about that support that we receive and the balance of support being important. Anyways, then I got a job at Cal State Long Beach, and that's where I've been ever since. I teach classes related to research methods for undergrads, group dynamics. I've taught psychology of sexuality, intro psych, where I think I need to revisit the dream stuff. And then for the grad students, I teach training, I teach group dynamics, I teach their practicum and their portfolio courses, which are some of those sort of culminative experiences for them. And then of course I supervise theses and do my own research. And of course I'm on committees at the university. In terms of IO, I research things like discrimination, sexual harassment, gender and sexual stereotypes, not just at work, but I've actually post-tenure dived into comics a little bit because I think comics are fun, and I get a free pass to Comic-Con every year if I present there. So I go to Comic-Con every year and talk about superheroes and mental health. And most recently, a publication I'm working on that I need to look at tonight is how veterans of military service are portrayed within the comic arts. They're portrayed as more isolated, they're portrayed as less mentally well off, and they're usually given less complex jobs, which is the IO angle. So I can even do fun IO work looking at gender segregation, racial, ethnic stereotypes within the world of comics. But generally speaking, I look at counterproductivity, things like sexual harassment, bullying at work, and that's what I mostly publish on. Some other interesting things about our program, if you decide to go to Cal State Long Beach, we have 2 tracks. You can do like a thesis, or you can do a portfolio option, we call it, where you can sort of highlight all of your work, put that together, do some research assistantship and finish that way, or do a traditional thesis sort of project, which may be a springboard to a PhD program or a research lab or something like that. But we have both tracks, but then the students finish with a master's degree. And one great thing about IO psychology is they can do a myriad of different things. As a researcher, I can look at anything at work, right? Even comics kind of at work, right? I've even done some stuff with zines, looking at first-gen students and zines and how that interacts with some teaching pedagogy stuff. But anyways, these students can do a lot of stuff from employee selection and their own nuts and bolts sort of testing and selection stuff, all the way to the other end of the spectrum where they're doing, disability accommodations or grievances or ethics at work, something like that. So they can do a lot of different things. Another good thing about IO is you can stop with a master's, 2 years, bam, done. Make great money, more than me. So that's annoying, but wonderful for students that you can finish with a master's and make plenty of money, more money than you need, and get a job fairly easily. If you fall out of love with IO, guess what? That degree is so sought after, you barely have to rediscipline and you can get hired within slightly different areas like social, HF, human factors, things like that. But anyways, a lot of job opportunities, plenty of money out there. There will always be bad managers. If you like The Office, you can watch Michael Scott and think of 1,000 reasons why you will have a job in the future if you work in HR, right? The HR person on that show was Toby. He was the butt of all the jokes because he was really the only rational person in the office. If you go back and watch that show, he's the only sane person. But anyways, HR, IO, all the same thing. If you're interested in it, feel free to ask me any questions now, I guess.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. I guess I'll kick it off with the question. When it comes to like someone such as myself who doesn't know a lot about industrial organizational, I've been introduced to it through different courses throughout Psych coursework. What is the material like going forward? So like, let's say I go, let's say I go to Long Beach, right? And I start pursuing industrial organizational. Is a lot about group dynamics and how managerial processes work, or how to deal, or is it more on the sense of how do you deal with individuals, like on an individual basis? Is it both? Does that make sense?
Totally, yeah. IO is, I think, one of the more technical fields. It's not as technical or engineering focused as human factors, and also amazing career to go into right now with all the technology burgeoning out there. We're slightly less technical than that, but not as soft as, like, let's say the social or clinical side, right? Where you're getting into more, I don't want to say touchy-feely. A psychologist should never call their own field touchy-feely, but anyways, there's a spectrum there. And I think IO is more on the technical side. So for example, if Devin can still hear me.
I can.
Great. One of the fundamental things you'll learn about in an IO graduate school is something called job analysis, right? Mm-hmm. Job analysis, analyzing a job. Part of that might be interviewing or surveying employees and then taking those perceptions and making something of it, right? Whether that's a job description that needs to be revised or a training program that you need to create. So one of the classes I teach training, they work, I'm a big believer in service learning. So they work with a nonprofit in the community, like Rebuilding Together. They survey and discuss with the stakeholders what they need different in their organization, what's hurting, what needs to be improved. And then in this case, they develop a training program to help them train employees to fix that problem. We have an org development class where it's an organizational diagnosis of a problem, right? So you're just sort of coming up with, what's your problem? Is it a pay issue? Is it an equity issue? What's going on in this organization and how could we fix that? So a lot of it is, how do we fix it? How do we train people to be better? Part of that is analyzing what is happening, right? What do they do in their jobs to be able to train or select somebody to do that job? So part of that is test construction and stuff like that. If you like statistics, you would do very well in IO. If you hate stats, you can succeed, but it helps if you like stats. As a PhD student, not as a master. Master students, they take, introductory stats, intermediate stats, and then maybe one more, right? If you really love it, you can also take, social network analysis and higher level classes. In graduate school for PhDs, we take almost as many stats classes like quantitative psychologists. We need to know about structural equation modeling and meta-analysis and test construction and all these things that are kind of statistical and technical. But you don't have to go that deep into it. You can be more on the sort of interviewer side or the trainer side where you're just delivering content to audiences like a teacher, right?
Gotcha.
And
Thank you
maybe
so much.
assessing whether that works. So there is still stats because you have to see if whatever you did worked.
Gotcha. And then I want to open it up for everyone else. I just have one more question too. That was an awesome answer. I know a lot of us in here, we like to do research. And so I was wondering how lucrative when it comes to the research side of industrial organizational or IO, how much space there is in there for that discipline when it comes to the research field. Do you see a lot of, obviously there's going to be research for it, but mostly, you hear about behavioral, or you'll hear about cognitive research, things like that. So I was wondering how much IO research goes into play with in comparison to other disciplines.
I think it matters more so on the degree you get, right? So if you end up getting a PhD and you end up in academia, you'll be research heavy, right? If you get a master's degree, you should be able to consume research and apply sort of the stuff that you learned in those classes, but you're not really responsible for like publishing or anything like that. The research you would be doing is kind of the nuts and bolts of what you learn in your research methods class in your labs, where you may want to design a survey, send that survey out, analyze that survey, and then communicate that to decision makers. Whereas we would analyze that and then write it up for publication or presentation, right? So a slightly different use of your skills, but some of the same research skills that you will be using. If you go applied, you'll be doing that for, let's say, a healthcare company. Like one of our social psychologists just left and got a job with a healthcare company. He'll probably be doing interviews, focus groups, surveys, and then communicating what that means, about whatever the topic is, to the CEOs and people like that, right? If you're in an educational environment like me, publication is part of what you're hired and promoted to do. So I wouldn't have gotten tenure if I didn't publish and didn't present, right?
Gotcha.
And
awesome.
One of my, just to make sure that I do actual research, one of my more serious studies is about, how policies and how they're framed for workers can create envy, and that envy that may be espoused by mentioning, let's say, customers even in a policy statement, can then create counterproductive work behaviors like sexual harassment. So all about how policies can create feelings that then produce actual behavior that could be adversive to the environment.
Wow, that is fascinating. On that research right there that you just spoke on, is there any way is that something that's already been published or something that you're working on currently?
That one I'm trying to publish. Yeah, it's in the pipeline, let's say. I've done other stuff like that. I'm not collecting data on that right now. Right now I'm trying to stick to the comic stuff.
Gotcha.
Just kidding. I'm also doing some stuff with disability studies, which I think is a fascinating area. I haven't pulled that into the organization yet. I just have a thesis student who's through the general research program, MAPR, it's called Masters of Psychological Research. Then I'm supervising her thesis looking at relationship expectations for individuals with disabilities, and seeing how those converge with other people's expectations, stakeholders in their lives, right? I did something very similar with work expectations for individuals with disabilities, and showed how, and that one's published in a European journal called Alter. But that one shows how parents, siblings, whoever, caseworkers may have completely different expectations for your work desires than you do. They may be potentially suppressing your abilities and experiences.
Great. Thank you for answering. Anyone else have any questions, please?
I did have a question, and I'll try and make it quick. Devin, you actually asked my first question. I'm a business major. I just like psychology. So a lot of this is super new information. Never heard of IO before. Like, excuse my ignorance, but you gave me a wealth of information. My question is, I think you had mentioned, right, that maybe you're just saying for us, but I thought you mentioned for you when you first started out that you were maybe interested in counseling or going in that direction. So was there a event, a piece of text you read, a class you took, something where you were like, no, I'm going to do IO? Like, was there something that?
Oh yeah, there was this article by Freud. No, just kidding. I think it was just listening to my
It's
friends.
always Freud.
I love Freud. I actually used to assign the complete Freud reader for my psychology of sexuality class, because once people read Freud, you change your mind about him. He was actually a very smart person. with some very unfortunate contextualized thoughts, but but he invented a lot of stuff that we give to other people, like Kinsey. Freud invented the scale of hetero to homosexuality. All of that stuff Freud invented. But anyways, it wasn't that. It was just listening to my friends' problems one too many times. I think that really convinced me. And there was a lot of talk when I was an undergrad about HMOs and insurances and, you know, having to have liability insurance and all that. And it all seemed like a bit much. And through the McNair program, which again, I really encourage people to sign up and reach out to these programs. I've even had students that weren't officially accepted to McNair, but McNair still like brought them into the family and still provided for them. So these programs are huge to me, because if I wouldn't have gone through McNair, I never would have met the advisors that I met and never would have probably realized that IO was the thing for me. And my school was 6th in the nation in it. Like, you can't get in a better place to learn about something. And I still wouldn't have learned about it if it wasn't for those programs. Business students, by the way, are almost like, let's say business major, psych minor, or psych major, business minor. That really is almost the perfect combination for IO psychology, by the way. And a lot of times what happens is in business schools, they call it org behavior or human resources, and people don't see the analogy. So when you're graduating, you should really be applying to like IO HR programs as well as the OB programs in business schools. Just as a random fact, if you apply for an IO PhD program, you may get, let's say, a $15,000 stipend a year, maybe a $20,000 stipend a year, where they pay you to be there, pay for your tuition, blah, blah, blah. You just live in poverty, but you're being there for free, right? So let's say 20,000 for a psych department, a business school would be 40,000. So you'd be making 40,000 to go to school, right? Never forget that part of the PhD process. Master's level, either one costs the same. You know, it's about equal, unless you go to a, you know, an Ivy League or something, which is where a lot of those OB programs are. They have like an OB program at Yale or something, right? Probably going to pay more than an OB program at UCLA or something. But OB is what they call it, org behavior in the business school. Org behavior, human resources, or organizational behavior and human resources. Sometimes they combine it all. In psychology, it's just called industrial organizational psychology. And then there's a weird step cousin called labor relations, but that feels kind of dying off. So don't go into labor relations, either IO or OB.
Okay, so it's kind of like a combination of both. I think you scared me a little bit with the statistics and being heavy there. I was kind of like, I don't know about that.
You may be a pro at stats and you just don't know it yet, though.
That's true.
A lot of people don't know they like stats until they take enough stats and they're like, I love this. Like, this is starting to jive with me.
That was definitely me.
Yeah,
I don't know if you saw Nancy's comment. She said, are there other programs out there similar to McNair?
Ronald E. McNair is the one that I was selected into in undergrad. It primarily focused on first-generation low-income minority students. There's a build, which is more STEM focused, but psychology is STEM, don't forget. So anything that's STEM focused, like build, is good. Another one like McNair here is called, I'm not sure. Just look up post-baccalaureate sort of mentorship programs. Each campus has a handful. And sometimes based on funding, they come and go, right? I can't think of another one on campus right now. It's under the umbrella of EOP here, Educational Opportunities. And so they have McNair and a couple others.
Do you have any other questions?
Yeah, I have one.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Let me see. I'll turn the camera down. Are you sure? Well, no, it's too late.
Too late. Okay. Firstly, thank you for the wealth of information. It was very interesting. So is the statistical aspect of IO psych, is it similar to, say, a PhD in psychometrics? Is there like some kind of overlap there in terms of the, you know, kind of like hard data portions?
That's a good question. I would say, you know, a PhD in psychometrics is its own thing, right? That makes you an expert in stats. Sometimes social and IO programs have a lot of stats classes. So they make us very good at stats. Now, whether you ever want to utilize that, that's another question, right? Like, I don't teach stats because I think people sometimes look miserable in stats classes. So I don't want to teach stats. I feel like it's depressing. I teach research methods, which you have to know a little bit of stats to teach. And I probably could teach courses at much higher levels. I just don't like to or want to. But psychometrics is purely a stats discipline, right? Social and IO tend to take a lot of stats classes. Social psych people from PhD programs in social tend to come out with a lot of stats as well now, like network analysis and stuff like that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I don't think that answers your question, but a PhD in quant is very specific. Our department may be hiring someday soon for a stats person, but it's more rare, I think.
Yeah, no, that was good. Yeah, thank
Yeah, we have one quant person right now at Cal State Long Beach, and we have like 4 IO faculty, if that helps.
Awesome. What time do we have? So it is 5 o'clock. So if anyone that needs to go can go. I would love to, if anyone has any more questions, if it's okay with you, Dr. Warren, if you have any more time. If anyone has any more questions, we can go. Feel free to ask him.
And I'll put my email in the chat, just if anybody has a question, they don't feel like answering it now, feel free to email me.
Yeah, that's always the best way to do it. Perfect.
Sorry, I couldn't think of any other EOP type programs on campus. I can't think of what the other ones are called. But I'm also going to throw the link into the handout from EOP because it has a huge list of services. Actually, these are just like student services, not like McNair. Oh yeah, they do have some stuff in here from McNair. This is a bunch of stuff here, but I'll also send you the direct link to McNair just so you see kind of what that's about.
Perfect. Thank you for sending that over. And just so anyone knows, so if you want those links and you don't want to, and you can't get it right now, there's 3 little dots in the chat box. You click on that, you're able to save the chat. It'll say save chat, and then that way you have his email, you'll have his the links that we posted, and then the rest of the chat as well for any other information. Oh, there we go. She has another question. She already has a B. I'm sure you can read it. Would she still be able to be eligible for a post-bac membership program?
Depending on the program, I would say not generally, because a lot of times they have like a number of hours or years left in school you have to participate, right? So like McNair wants a year or 2 left before you graduate. What I would recommend for someone in your position, Nancy, is getting some research assistant on the side, an HR internship if you're really interested in IO. HR internships can really help out a lot to give you an idea of what IO is, and then in your personal statements, be able to communicate what you know about IO. So it can help not only with the line on the resume showing that you had an HR internship, but your personal statement will come out better because of it.
Perfect.
Cool.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Thank you so much, Dr. Warren. Everyone, give him a big thank you if you can. It was awesome having you here. It's seriously, and especially, like I said, someone who is, I've always had a fascination with IO, but haven't really learned about it, taking the classes yet myself. And so that's something when I go, I'm hoping to actually go to Long Beach, which is funny enough. So if I do end up transferring over there, I'd love to be able to take some, maybe even something from you.
You probably will have to, don't get too excited. I'm putting in psyop.org too, just because that's the Society for IO Psychology. They have a student affiliate sort of thing you can join, and you get like a little newsletter. I don't know if I encourage it. The newsletter sometimes is useful, sometimes isn't. But you can be a student affiliate or just check out their website. That's the major conference in my field. But of course, Western Psych Association has posters about IO, and then there's regional stuff too. So also for somebody like Nancy, checking out an organization like PSYOP, SHRM, Society for HR Management, the PTC, Personnel Testing Council, ATD, Association of Training and Development. There's a lot of local organizations that you might be able to connect with and get some experiences.
Perfect. Well, I'm going to go ahead. Maddie, are you still there to be able to hop on the agenda? Oh, I already saw your.
Yeah.
Yep. Perfect. I will adjourn the meeting today at 5:04 p.m. Thank you everyone for being here, especially Dr. Warren. Seriously, amazing information. I know you definitely will be inspiring a few people in here. I myself included. If you have any questions, I'll make sure to have it. If it's all right with you, Dr. Warren, if it's all right if I include your email in our agenda. And so that way people will be able to reach out to you directly. That's all right with you.
That's fine.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you again, seriously, for being here. Everyone else, I hope you all enjoy the rest of your week. Remember, tomorrow, just a quick reminder, tomorrow we have our trivia night. So I will be emailing you guys tomorrow morning about the link over to that. We're going to do 2 little cahoots and there'll be real prizes. So yippee, that'll be a lot of fun. Just come and hang out if you want. Actually, Dr. Warren, if you're invited to, of course. I know you probably are a very busy man, but if you want to come hang out with trivia night, of course, you're welcome. But Thursday, we'll also have our on-campus booth at 9 a.m. In front of the campus, the computing center over at the new building. So Brain Awareness Week is about to be wrapping up soon, but we still got this 2 more days of fun. Thank you all for being here, and everyone have a good rest of your week and good day. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Warren.
Thank you, Dr.
so
Warren.
much.
Thank you, Devin.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.